Everyone, Coach Tiffany here. So real life happened today. I was originally going to come on at 12:30 and had put it on my calendar for 1 o'clock. So, and then my dad actually has a new girlfriend and she lives out of town. He's moving to Nevada and she lives down there. And so she's in town. So I was meeting her this morning and just didn't have enough time to get all my eating in. And so, I hadn't really had enough food this morning. So decided to just take care of myself and come on, at 12:45 instead, kind of halfway between the two times. But my goal is to really be on here right around 12:30 or 1 o'clock every Thursday, kind of lunchtime for most people. I'm going to talk about whatever is coming up for people. So questions that I've been asked, or I do have a survey, although it's not as robust as I would have liked. The survey will be potentially put out again, or a different survey with more topics so that people can weigh in on what is important to them, what support they're needing, what they're wanting to hear. I'm not sure that I'm seeing anyone on live right now. If you are on live, say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're from and, how your day is going. Also, I'm using my microphone. This might make it loud, but my Yeti. And so I don't know how this sounds for all of you guys, but last time I did a video from my computer, it didn't sound that great. So so hopefully this sounds better. Let me know if you can hear me, and I'm going to dive in. So the goal is really to fit in a good, half an hour, 45 minutes, even up to an hour of live coaching. Most of my other videos, I try to keep short and sweet, little snippets, but this is really so that I can offer as much support as possible. And ideally, I'd love to coach people, like put them in the hot seat and coach them live. Unfortunately, with HIPAA, while someone can say, I understand it's not HIPAA compliant, there's also just a confidentiality piece. And so, it's kind of walking that line of whether, we're able to really protect someone's confidentiality if we're in here. I think we have 50 members right now, and I'm sure as time grows, we'll get bigger. So those people then can kind of do what they want with that information. So right now I'll be posting weekly a question. If you have questions, please comment. Or you can, if you'd rather ask me the question privately, you can private message me, and then I will talk in depth about that, try to answer the question and talk about that subject in depth on the coaching call or the coaching live. So that's going to be weekly. So hopefully that will add support and add value. If you have ideas and what things you'd like to see in this group, feel free to reach out to me, privately, or post in the group on the poll or survey that I posted. Feel free to add topics. I did get a few topics from there, so people are really concerned about stress management. And so we'll talk about that today. And then I also just want to talk about like food, like quality versus quantity, and whether we should be paying attention to macros or whether we should be paying attention to ingredients. What is the most important thing? Should we be weighing and measuring? Are calories important, right? So first I'm going to hop into or dive into stress management, because I think that is one of the biggest things that prevents us from being our best selves and feeling our most well and having the energy that we want to have to do all the things. So, one example I use is a client that I had who came to me who had a super stressful job. She had her own business and her spouse had his own business, and they had children at home, and she wasn't sleeping well, and she had some hormone stuff going on. And, when we unpack that, what we realized is she had a ton of stress in her life. And so she was feeling like she was an emotional eater, and she was feeling like it was just, her fault that she had put on some extra weight and really wanted to lose the weight. And so her focus had been trying to kind of control her food intake. But when we looked at it, we realized that stress was actually a huge component. So what happens when we're stressed out is that our cortisol level goes up, right? And then when our cortisol level goes up, it actually increases production of other hormones, including insulin. And so, insulin tries to bring the blood sugar into your cells. So then your blood sugar is going to drop, and that's going to cue your body like, hey, we need more carbs, right? So you get this kind of cycle where you're stressed out and it makes you crave carbohydrates. And then you eat carbohydrates and maybe you're not getting enough sleep. And so, then you want even more carbohydrates. And then the more you eat carbs, the more you have these spikes in blood sugar and then crashes. And then you want more carbs, right? And probably combined in there is caffeine. And a lot of times caffeine causes us to not sleep as well, maybe feel jittery, more anxious, more stressed out. So caffeine can be a good tool, but it doesn't always help in this cycle when we're stressed. So stress is really, it's totally a part of life, but it can really wreak havoc on our bodies and cause us to, it also actually contributes to weight gain and contributes to inflammation. And so it also causes damage here, but it increases our cravings for carbohydrates. So it's not awesome, right? So the way that we manage stress is twofold. So we either cut things out that cause us stress. So like if we have a person in our life that causes us stress, or if we're overworking, or maybe we have a job that we really don't enjoy and that's causing us stress, relationships, any of these things, right? Financial stress, like you can try to become more financially healthy. So there's things you can do to eliminate some stress in your life. And then, or decrease, stressful things in your life. So managing the actual stressors. And then the other piece of that is, what do we do with the stress? So how we handle stress. And for a lot of women, we tend to not make ourselves a priority. So then we're also not getting any reprieve for that. So what happens is we're kind of in this constant state of fight or flight. And we are, having that adrenaline going all of the time and that cortisol going all of the time, which then, like I said, leads to carbohydrate cravings and increased weight gain and inflammation. It can also cause us to not sleep well, which makes us more tired. So it's this really negative cycle. And so the key is really breaking out of that fight or flight and into rest and digest, or out of the stress response and into the relaxation response. And we want to be breaking that cycle as often as possible, as soon as we're recognizing like, hey, I'm having a stress response right now. And we can't always do it immediately. I mean, maybe your toddler's having a meltdown in Target. Like, I'm not suggesting that you then just like sit down and start meditating and just forget about the toddler, right? There's times where we have to handle the situation. But ideally, as soon as we possibly can, we will take time for ourselves to get into the relaxation response. And so for everyone that looks different. And so the relaxation response is really about, shifting those hormones, but for different people, it's done, there's ways we can do it with more ease. So for me, it was simply doing deep breathing techniques. And a lot of you have seen me practice my noisy breathing. That's kind of funny. I'll go ahead and practice it now. I'll suggest a few other ways. But one thing that's really important is to get those breaks in real time and take that and shift out of that relaxation response, like I said, as soon as possible. So usually it's best to build these habits into our lives and do it multiple times a day, because we're not always able to recognize like, oh, I'm in the stress response right now. And, we're just kind of constantly in it. So this way we develop the habit, we learn to practice it, it becomes like a muscle. Then when we're having that stress response, we can kind of recognize more quickly and go to our tools that we have chosen to develop. All right, so I'm going to do the breathing technique. I'm going to zoom out a little bit and I'm going to show you. I have a picture on my floor that I haven't hung up yet. Anyway, so with this breathing technique, we're going to breathe into our bellies. A lot of women don't like to have their hands on their bellies. So another way to make sure we're breathing into our abdomen and our diaphragm is actually to breathe into our backs. So you can also kind of put your hands on your side, kind of where your love handles would live if you have them, and just focus on trying to expand that piece. So you can see my chest is rising a tiny bit, but not a ton. We don't want to be doing this kind of thing, because if we're breathing deeply into our chest, we're not fully expanding our bellies, and we are potentially telling our bodies like, get ready to run, right? Because that's that's the kind of breathing we do when we have to take off, right? So you're going to breathe into your sides or your back or your abdomen, whatever focus is helpful to you. And then the point of that is to bring your diaphragm down, which then stimulates your vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve starts in your brain. It goes down into your throat. It goes into your, actually goes into your diaphragm, and then even into your cervix if you're a woman. It's called the wandering nerve, and it's the longest cranial nerve. And when we stimulate the vagus nerve, we actually cause a cascade of relaxation hormones to be released, and decreases like cortisol and things like that. So vagal nerve stimulation is great. You can Google it. There's lots of ways to do it naturally, but it's so effective that they're actually starting to put vagal nerve stimulators into people's bodies. But why have surgery when we can just breathe? So I'm going to go ahead and do this. And when we breathe out, we're going to breathe out a ha sound. So the ha sound is going to vibrate our throat, which is also going to stimulate the vagus nerve. You could also hum like when you're breathing out. But I just like the ha since that's how I learned it first. Plus, sometimes it makes you laugh, which is also a good thing. All right, so here we go. Okay, I'm going to do it 2 more times. Okay, 1 more time. All right. So for me, this is one of the first. Oh, I think somebody hopped on. If you can hear me, I see you give me a thumbs up. I'm hoping that means you can hear me. So anyways, so deep breathing. So that's one of the easiest ways, the quickest and easiest ways to switch out of the stress response and into the relaxation response. We can do it in our car. We can do it in a meeting, although you might not want to do the noisy breathing that I just showed you in a meeting. But, doing more just quiet breathing. Another exercise you could do is breathing in, and then each time you exhale, just count. And the goal is to count to 10, not in one breath, but breathe out 10 times. And you'd be amazed. Hi, Margaret. You'd be amazed how challenging it can be when you're really stressed out to actually focus enough to count your exhales up to 10 times. So you would just go 1, 2, right, all the way to 10. If you lose your focus, you lose your train of thought, maybe around like number 5, then you start over at 1 again. Sometimes it'll take you like 4 or 5 times to get all the way to 10 if you're really stressed out. But the goal overall is managing your stress in real time and getting out of the stress response and into the relaxation response. So breathing is a great way to do it. It's free. It's cheap. You can do it anywhere. It's free. It's cheap. It's free. It's easy. You could do it anywhere. But it does take practice. So I actually had to set a timer on my phone, remind myself to do it. I would do it in the morning and around lunchtime, and then in the evening, usually on my commute home where I was pretty stressed out. But there are a million other ways to switch out of the stress response. So acupuncture is a great passive way to switch out of the stress response. And so for me, I got acupuncture every week for a long time, and now I go about every other week, but at least every month. I don't go more than a month without going to acupuncture. I have an amazing acupuncturist who does like hot stone massage on me and does super long sessions. So that's a way. You could try doing sound baths. You could, meditation is wonderful for switching out of the stress response and actually building the pathways you need to be able to switch out of the stress response more readily when you, when you make an effort. For some people, it's just sitting quietly. For some people, it's reading. For some people, it's, grounding, right? Like walking around outside in the grass. So being in nature is another wonderful way to manage your stress. So, really the goal is to find something that you'd like to try and, just implement that one thing, whatever it is, that is super easy, and then be really consistent with it so that your body learns that, that tool, and you can just easily access it when you are stressed out. So you can use it in real time. And then having that kind of maintenance, so acupuncture, maybe you swim, whatever it is. Exercise, of course, is another wonderful way to switch out of the stress response. But the biggest barrier that I find is women really oftentimes don't make themselves a priority because people's needs first. We're caretakers, or, we feel that we don't have an option. Like life needs to be handled, work needs to be handled, kids need to be handled, or we feel selfish for taking that time. And the thing is that a lot of times we feel like our value and our worth is related to other people's needs being put for, other people being happy, right? That's what makes us valuable and worthy, taking care of others. Unfortunately, when we don't do a great job of that, it leads to us not feeling good enough. And so I did write a blog about this that just came out today. You should have it in your emails if you're on my email list. I believe it was posted in the Facebook group as well, maybe on my business page. I can't remember. But, it's kind of about my journey and why I became passionate about this. And it was really learning that my value and my worth was constant, that I'm valuable and worthy of love and respect no matter what. And that means that I need to give myself love and respect, which looks like managing my stress and taking time for myself, doing self-care, whether that's breathing or, I meditate every morning. I try to go for a walk every day. I'm trying to incorporate other forms of exercise into my life, right? So that's showing myself love and respect. But I had to know that I was worthy of love and respect and that I deserved it, which has to do with feeling good enough. And it's kind of a conundrum because we have to take care of ourselves to get to the point where we are, feel like we're worthy of being cared for, right? We have to kind of look at love as an action and take those actions toward ourselves. And then we'll start to feel like we are worthy of love as well. So that's my take on stress management. And it is challenging, but, it's kind of the twofold, like knowing you deserve to take the time to handle your stress, recognizing, when you need breaks, and building habits to really take those breaks in real time, give yourself as much support as you need. So, so the last thing I'll say about stress management, I used to think that self-care was something that I needed to, that I didn't really need to do, or I only needed to do occasionally. Then I learned that I needed this like basic level of self-care, and that needed to happen no matter what. And then I learned that not only do I need this basic level of self-care, but when I'm stressed out, rather than doing less self-care, I used to think I needed to do the same amount no matter what. Then I learned actually the more stressed I am, the more self-care I need. So that was really challenging because usually when I'm stressed out, I don't feel like I have a lot of time. All right, so that was really heavy. That ended up taking, 18 minutes. Whew. I don't know if anybody will watch this whole thing. I usually try to do subtitles on my videos, but these are going to be so long that I don't know that I'll be able to subtitle them. But hopefully you'll catch it on the replay if you're not able to get on live.